Great. So hello, everyone, and thank you very much for joining our fifth co-hosted webinar. So today I'm really glad to be here with our friend from Appfire and Atlassian to give you a bit more insight around how to get a better automatization in Jira. So to do so, we'll go through different apps of the market and also best practices to improve the automatization. So as I said, we'll now begin. So I think we're all now really familiar with the webinar format where you're all on mute, but still you can use the chat box, you can share feedback, ask a question and share any comments. We have our friend from Appfire, Cody, who will be here to moderate the Q&A session at the end of all the presentation. Great, so let me introduce you the speakers of today's webinar. So we've got the pleasure to get John on board. So John has worked with Atlassian for 2 years now, having come from the former marketplace app Automation for Jira that he will be introducing today. And also is Irish, as you might notice with his accent. He has lived in Sydney for the past 8 years. Slight warmer than Dublin from what he said. And yes, I can make joke of accent due to my really strong French one. So myself, I'm Flora Rubio, I'm the head of sales at Deiser. So Deiser, we are a platinum partner here in Spain. We're also gold vendor and the proud owner of Projectrak and exporter for Jira. And last but not least, we've got Michael here also from Appfire, who is the principal product manager of Appfire. So thank you very much for both of you, John and Michael, to join us today. So this is today's agenda. So John will start with a bit of an overview of why automatization is important, what is automation for Jira, what the value of the app, and if he also picked a specific use case that he will show you during a live demo. Myself, I will be talking about Projectrak. I'm not going to show you all the features of the app today, just because today we've decided to focus on automatization. So I've picked few of the features we've got that will help you to save time and reduce repetitive tasks. I will also show you the integration we've got with automation for Jira, the value of it. And finally, Michael will walk through how the Atlassian CLI has moved beyond rote memorization of command and action to become a wayfinding interface to accelerate your complex administrative jobs. And as I told you, at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So it will be at the end of all the presentations. So please bear with us until the end. Use the chat box and we will make sure to reply to all of your questions. And if we don't have enough time to do it, we'll make sure to send you an email. So I think it's your time, John. I will give you the mic. I will stop sharing my screen and you can go for it.
Thank you very much, Flora, and good morning, everybody. Good evening. This is a proper international webinar from all over the world. So first of all, thanks a million for having me here. I'm delighted to talk about automation and represent Atlassian. I want to spend all of my time pretty much just going through the actual feature in our automation playground, because I think that's the best way for everybody to get to know it. But what I'll do just before I do that is explain, I suppose, the value props of automation. This may seem pretty obvious, but why do we automate? What is automation as well, and how you can best get started with it. So I'll just start there with my sort of, I don't know what this guy is, an illustration of a personal assistant, because the most obvious value prop for automation is the fact that it saves you time. You can act like a personal assistant who, you know, constantly does work 24 hours a day. You never have to pay them. Kind of sounds illegal. Pretty much any task that's expected or repetitive, you can create an automation rule and this personal assistant will take care of it all for you. And if you've never automated before, you'll be pretty amazed at how much easier work just flows when you remove those little interruptions in your day. So that's the main value prop. The second one, and the one that's maybe underestimated a little bit, is the power of focus. I'll use developers as my example here. I worked in a team of 13 developers with automation for Jira, and just myself, I was the only one that wasn't. And I saw firsthand what happens when you tap a developer on the shoulder when they have their headphones in and they're deep in a state of flow in code. They don't buy you lunch is probably the best way of putting it. So if you can do anything to make their lives easier and just let them focus on code, let them focus on building cool stuff, that's what we can do. So in automation, one of the rules I'm going to show you later on is how they can continue to work in Bitbucket or GitHub or GitLab, whatever you have. And we can just make sure that all the work they're doing stays in Jira updated. So you always have that single central source of truth in Jira, but they can stay where they work best within the code world. It's not, of course, it's not just developers, it's pretty much every team that can benefit from having more focus, but I think that's the most powerful one. And lastly, productivity. It's, business is moving so fast these days. I know that's a cliche and pretty much every presentation starts that way, but it's true. It's scary how fast it's moving and we need every advantage that we can get. I spoke to Jeff from Canva, that's probably 6 or 7 months ago now. And when they started off using Jira automation, they were saving about 150 hours per month just with his team alone. So again, like by removing those bottlenecks, those paper cuts, those directions, it allows your company, allows your team to move nimbly and to keep that edge over your competitors. So it's not really a question of should I automate anymore, but rather it's a question of how much should I automate or how should I automate? And I think that's what we'll sort of talk through a little bit today. Okay, lastly, before I go into the demo world, I'm going to use my 1980s Lego GIF here to explain a little bit about how Jira automation works. So it's probably a good point for me to call out that the automation feature in Jira is free for everybody to use in Jira Cloud. If you're a server or a DC customer, there's an app in the marketplace that you can use there. But for Cloud, it's free. You can go in there immediately, start using it, at least at the single project level. I'll talk to that a little bit more later on. But just first to explain how our automation feature works. So just like Lego blocks that you build, you put these Lego blocks together in different ways to build your rules. So for us, that means every rule always starts with a trigger. This is our first building block. So a trigger just means that we're listening for an event from Jira or from Bitbucket or GitHub or Slack, whatever it might be. We're just listening for an event and that's what's going to kick off our rule. Now, nearly always you're going to add a condition. So let's say, for example, our trigger is whenever an issue is created in Jira, the condition might be to check the priority. Is it a high priority, a low priority, etc., like a triage kind of thing. And then lastly, every rule is going to finish with an action. I never get that animation right. And an action just means that we're going to execute upon the rule. So that could be, again, we send a Slack message, we leave a comment on the Jira issue, whatever it might be. So these are the building blocks. These are the Lego blocks that we use to create rules. Now, it obviously goes deeper than that, as you'll see in a few minutes, but at a very basic level, I want you to keep that in mind because most of us, well, at least speaking for myself, I don't have a developer background, but I don't need to. It's as simple as dragging and dropping, pointing and clicking. And you'd be pleased to know that it doesn't look like a 1980s Lego GIF. The UI is actually quite clean, quite beautiful. And the other surprising thing is it's actually quite fun to use. You get these little eureka moments as you put the rules together. Now, all that said, I'm going to move away from slides now, as I promised, and go through to show you some of the main use cases that people use. And I'm going to do that in the automation template library. This is something that we shipped, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 months ago, and it's been extremely popular with people. I'll show it to you in a moment, but first to sort of explain what my goal is. I don't want to just give you automation templates, which is exactly what this is. You can, of course, take the templates, but rather I want to give you, teach you how to fish, I suppose, rather than give you fish. And that's the goal of 3 demos that I will show you today. Okay, that in mind, keep watching me, or if you happen to be one of those people with 2 screens, as I feel like everybody is these days, you can click on this link, well, you can't click on this link, follow this link, atlassian.com/automation. That'll bring you to the template library, and you can click along with me and see what I see. Okay, voila, bit of French there, Flora. This is the automation template library. I'll just walk you through it very briefly. If you haven't seen it before, it's basically a place where we house over 100 automation templates. So we go from the simple to the more complex, and it's the best place for anybody who wants to get started with automation because you can just do the very simple thing of copying and pasting rules and bring them over into your own instance. So what we have is popular categories. So for example, if your team are using, Jira with Slack or Microsoft Teams, which I think many people are, you can go in here and you can see the most popular rules that we have. So for example, this is one that we use in the marketing team. We get a daily Slack summary every day of new issues that we've created. So designers can get a quick idea of what we need. And then that can go for all of the other categories as well. The 6 most popular templates that our customers use are these, and I'm going to tap into 1 or 2 of these during our demo. So again, you can just go through here, and what it'll do is give you a much more detailed breakdown of these rules. So essentially, if you feel like I'm going too fast today or my weird Irish accent is hard to follow, you can just watch me all over again on these videos, and I've got a sort of breakdown of every rule. And then lastly, and this is where we're going to do our magic today, this is the playground. And in here, this is just a safe environment where we can create and play around with rules. So it serves 2 purposes. One is you can go in and say, okay, I want to learn how to automatically add 3 subtasks on every issue creation. And you can just take this, copy and paste it. But better again, you can actually play around. So if you're not comfortable in your own instance playing with automation, come in here and have a crack and just start playing around with it and dragging and dropping, pointing and clicking, which is exactly what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to use the playground rather than a live Jira instance, just so you guys are comfortable as well. And noting as well, I know I am going quite fast because I want to get in as much as possible, and I don't want to take up Michael's time or anybody's time as well. So there will be a recording of this, which you can watch. And as I said, everything's already in the playground for you. Okay, that said, let's start off with the very easiest rule that we have. And it's also the most popular rule. So whenever an issue is created in Jira, by default, it's going to go to unassigned. But really what we want is accountability. We want to make sure everybody has, every issue is assigned to someone so it doesn't just slip through the cracks. So that's what this automation rule is going to fix. So as I showed earlier on, every issue starts with the trigger. And in our case, our trigger here is going to be issue created. Nice and simple. So whenever an issue is created in Jira, now we're up and running. Now, the second thing, just keep in your mind again on that Lego block, our second issue is going to be, the second feature component is going to be the condition. Now, you can see there's lots of different options here, JQL, issue attachment, and so on. But this is the one that I use 80% of the time, mostly because I'm a simple man and this is a simple little component, because all we have to do is just choose by pointing and clicking. So for us here, what we're looking for is the assignee field. And in here, we can go as simple as saying it's empty. So whenever an issue is created, if the assignee is empty, what do we want to do? Well, we want to do something. So we go to our actions. You can see there's lots of options here. We can comment on the issue, clone, we can add subtasks, delete, so on. But what we're going to do is simply assign the issue. So I can specify the user. I can say, let's go down and give it to Steve. But what I actually just want to do is keep it simple and keep it generic. So whoever created the event, whoever created the issue will always get the assignee. And that's it. That's all you're going to do. So you name your rule, auto assign issues. Turn it on. It won't work because we're in the playground, but it's a nice way for us to sort of get a feel about how this works. And that's it. This is one that you can just take immediately and start running with. You'll find if your team don't already use automation, they're going to start to love you. I get probably the only compliments I get in my whole life are from people saying, thanks for removing that paper cut for us. Thanks for speeding things up. I don't get anything from my wife. Maybe I should ask for more. Okay, I want to move on to the second one before I get into my personal life. And the second task, the second use case I want to show you is about keeping your work in sync. Again, you'll find sometimes that you have issues, maybe across projects that you want to keep in tandem. But what we're going to do for this one is solve the problem that whenever you close a parent issue, naturally, you want all of the child issues to be closed as well, because that's the whole idea. If an epic is closed, then everything else should be closed. Again, by default, it doesn't happen for good reason, but with automation, we can put that right. So this time, the event that we're listening for is, if I could spell, issue transitioned. So whenever an issue is transitioned to done in Jira. And now the reason I'm showing you this rule is because I want to show off our branch, which is not just a pretty color. So we're going to use the branch rule related issues. This is the most common way we'll do things. And you can see here, a little line has branched off, that's the name branch. So whenever an issue is transitioned to done, for our current issue, we want to change that. So we could work on the epic, we could work on linked issues, but for us, what we want to do is simply work on the subtasks. So I'll do so here. Okay, so an issue transition to done. For all the subtasks, we'll add a little condition in here. And again, issue fields condition, this is the one we use the most. And we simply want to say that the status does not equal done. So if the parent changes to done, and the subtasks aren't done, what do we want to do? We want to perform an action, which is basically just to sync it up. So we'll transition the issue to done. Or we could even go one better. Instead of specifying done, we can just say copy it from the trigger issue. All right, so that's the trigger. That's the trigger issue. So all we're doing is saying keep this and this in sync, keep the parent and the child in sync. And that's it. Once again, we give it a name, close subtasks when parent is completed. I can't believe I did that with those spelling mistakes. Won't work because we're in the playground, but that's rule 2. It's a nice sort of easy, it's slightly harder than the last one, but not too hard. Okay, I'm going to fly through here because we have maybe 2 minutes left and I've got the most complex rule to go. This one is very useful. So this is the one we talked about earlier on, keeping developers happy. So we're going to use our DevOps trigger here. And what we're going to say is whenever a pull request is merged, so again, whether they're using Bitbucket or GitHub, whatever, you just have to connect it once and you never have to do it again. It's a once-off thing. So we'll go in, no Git provider connected, that's fine. So whenever PR is merged in GitHub, what we want to do is add in a little condition, which again, we'll just use our issue fields condition. And we'll say status is one of, let's just say in progress, it should be in review, but that's okay for this. We're going to add a second condition. And in this case, it's the first time I'm not using an issue fields condition. I'm using a JQL condition here because what we're looking for is a little bit more complex than the usual. So what I'm looking for basically is to make sure there's no pull requests that are already open. If you're not used to JQL, that's okay. You can just copy and paste what's in the playground for now until you get more used to it. And you can validate. It won't show anything in the playground, but in your real Jira instance, it will show you if there are any pull requests still open. But that's all we need to do. And now we can perform an action. So for us, what we're going to do here is transition the issue to done. Easy as. So this is a long way of saying that whenever a developer does a piece of work in GitHub or Bitbucket, whatever it is, in the old world, they have to switch context, go into Jira, update that issue, or more likely a project manager would have to Slack them and say, don't forget to update your work in Jira. But now we can just connect that. We can remove that need for them to switch context and jump in and out of different tools. So it's very, very handy. And this is just one of over 100 examples you can use. If you feel like any of those rules will be useful for you, they're all here for you, especially if you work with developers, these ones are good. Or if you work with Slack and Microsoft Teams, these ones are gold as well. Okay, so that's it. I've just about reached my time. So again, by all means, please do go in and check out the automation template library in your own time. And also just finish off by saying thank you very much for having me. It's a real pleasure. I know I spoke fast, but hopefully it was useful for you guys. And I'll hand it back over to Flora.
Thank you very much, John. It was quick but efficient, so perfect. I know it's a strict time, and thank you for respecting it. And I got it everything, even with your Irish accent, which is amazing. So thank you so much. I will start sharing my screen myself now. If you can confirm that you can see it, John. That okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, perfect. So really briefly, I want to introduce also my colleague Fede, who is here with me. Actually, he's always with me on event. I'm quite lucky because he's the one answering all your questions at the end of the presentation during the Q&A. So now we're going to talk about how to leverage automatization for Jira project tracking. So Projectrak, formerly Profield, is a Jira project tracker that helps you to control and manage your Jira project information. So everything I'm going to show you now is on the project level. So at the end of the day, what does Projectrak is that give you the ability to track, to classify, and to categorize Jira project value. So there is something important here to understand is that a project in Jira can be anything depending on your own implementation and organization. So for example, we've got some customer where a project is a team, other where it's a department, a tool, or a business project. Okay, so again, a project in Jira can be anything depending on your own Jira implementation. Later on, I will remind exactly the structure of Jira and where Projectrak brings a real added value. In terms of deployment, Projectrak is available in both server, data center, and cloud. I must say that there is still a gap between cloud and data center, but the team is working really hard to fill this gap. We've been focusing on the security part. We are part of the bug bounty program. We are cloud certified also. We've aligned our strategy with Atlassian strict guideline on cloud, but the next year will be about adding more features. So also if you've got any feedback on some feature that does exist in data center that we don't have in cloud, please feel free to reach our support. Great, so really briefly how Jira works. Well, you've got what we call the project, and within those projects, you will have some queues of issues, okay? And within those issues, you will have, for each issue, some subtasks. So far, I think we're pretty aligned. So by default, what offers Jira is some values on project, but we've got a really limited possibilities on the project value. So you will find the name, the key, the project description, but that's pretty much it. When for issues, we'll have a lot of possibilities. We'll have date, we'll have comment, we'll have status, priority, etc., which make it much more easier for you to track your issues than to track your project. Okay, so that's when at Deiser we wanted to level up the level of understanding of your Jira instance and help our customer to understand better what's going on into the Jira instance from the project point of view. So what does Projectrak is giving you the ability to create custom field on the project level. So thanks to Projectrak, you will have the project status, the project priority, due date, and a lot of possibilities. Okay, so that's I would say like the base of a project is giving you the ability to get more data around your project. But then those data will be much more accessible because we've created some features such as filters. You can also export your project data to Excel. You can also monitorize your project data thanks to the gadget we have created. We've got also a strong integration with EasyBI or Power BI that give you the ability to get much more complex and robust reports on your project. Finally, we've got, as I said, the ability to create custom field on your project and also layout, which is another concept that I'm going to show you right now. And finally, the automatized data. Okay, so that's the feature I'm going to explain today because I cannot show you everything. So today I'm going to focus on this part, which is the main topic of this webinar. But let's see first how Projectrak looks like. So what offers Projectrak is the ability to get a project layout. So a project layout is like a Jira scheme, but for project that show a different range of fields, which are distributed in 3 containers. So in the first one, which is called system data, you will find either native Jira properties like the lead, for example, or the name, along with the one provided by Projectrak, such as the created date, for example. In the second container, you will find the follow-up project information, like that Projectrak delivers, such as project status. You will find the priority. You can even add some date. As I said, you can also add some comments. So actually, what does Projectrak is helping you to improve the project communication with other stakeholders. Okay, so that will be how Projectrak will look like. It's like adding you some project information, adding every custom field that you need to track and report properly your project. Great, so now let's focus on what offers Projectrak in terms of automatization. Well, Projectrak offers several types of automatization. You can either get some automatized action, like, for example, receive notification on your project update, but you can also get some automatized control. Like, for example, you would be able, thanks to Projectrak, to block the issue creation depending on a specific project value. Okay, so let's see first how subscription you look like. So if you're familiar with Jira, you know that you can receive some notification and get subscription on your issue. Well, with Projectrak, you have the ability, if you click on the envelope icon, which is here, to create a new subscription. So it's really easy. You add your name, you select the option. So most of the time, people will highlight only updated value. And you can also choose the frequency, like for example, if you want to receive every week, which day and which time you want to receive notification around your project changes. Really important. Here you can decide to receive notification on one specific project, on all your projects, or on a list of projects that you will define thanks to the filter. Okay, so depending on how many projects you are tracking, that can be relevant to create also some filter. So now let's see how the subscription email looks like. Well, on this email, you will receive the list of projects you are tracking, and more importantly, the updated value. So you can see the past information with the new one. That means you don't have to check issue per issue, project per project, what are the changes and who has made the change also. So subscription, I would say it's like one way of getting automatically updated on your project progress, but there is a few more. So another key features of Projectrak to make your information more dynamic is the ability to make project workflow, condition, validation, and post-function interact with the value of your custom field stored with Projectrak. So to make it easier for you to understand, let's take an example. So what I'm going to show you is an example of a project workflow validation integrated with a specific Projectrak value. So what we've got on the screen is a specific project workflow. So we can see here the setup, which is quite easy. And what we've done is like we've selected the create issue transition. And when you click on the transition, you've got this pop-up window where you can select several options. So in that case, we had a Projectrak value validator. Okay, so what we've decided is that to make sure this issue creation transition work, we want that the statute, which is one of our project field value, is equal to on track, which means that if your project status is not on track, your user won't be able to create an issue. So let's see how it works. We're going to select a project that is not on track. And we're going to try to create an issue. Well, that will happen for your user. You will have like a pop-up window with a warning message saying that he's not able to create an issue because the project status is not on track. So I like this example, but there is one I like more. It's the ability to block an issue creation if the budget is as exceeded, for example. So let's say that you decide that anytime that your budget is overdue, is expended, you cannot create an issue. So that would be another way to automatically get control on your issue creation and on your project. Great, so we've got much more example on our documentation, either for script field or for workflow validation and conditions. So feel free to have a look at it. As John said, we have a really short time to introduce a lot of features, so we can have also a specific demo if you want to get more details around one of the features. So I'm sure you understood so far, or at least I hope you understood so far, that Projectrak offers you several possibilities of custom fields on your project. Okay, so I've mentioned date, I've mentioned text, status, priority, but there is also the ability to create script fields, okay, which give you a limitless number of possibilities. So let's have a look first at an easy one, really easy one, just to show you that you don't need to get a really strong skills of development to use it. So when clicking on create field, you will have a list of type of field you could create. One of them is the script field. So then you will have this dialog window where you will have to name your script. So here we've decided to call it Hello World. And then you will need to insert the Groovy script. Again, in our documentation, we've got a lot of use cases, so you can just copy paste your Groovy code and use it directly on your instance. But what's important to, so this is how the Hello World script field would look like on your layout. But yes, what's important to understand here with the script field is that there is a lot of possibilities. So from knowing how many blocker bugs you may have in a project, to be able to see if a project is profitable for your company, Okay, so basically those scripts can get and arrange pretty much any piece of information from within your Jira instance. Let's take another example. So for example, we've got this incurred cost. So basically what this field does, it sums up the total time spent, which is a script field, because you've got like the total time spent of all your issue on that specific project summing up here. And the incurred cost is like the sum up of the total time spent times with the cost per hour that you would have previously defined manually, obviously. So this is one of the calculated fields that offer Projectrak. And then you would be able to get a remaining budget the same way. So that will be like the remaining result of the budget, again, that you would have previously had, minus the incurred cost that you would have calculated automatically. So imagine that instead of checking project per project or issue per issue, your budget evolution, the remaining budget, you could get this information directly on the screen. And then you could report them also on a list view. Great. So I think now it's time for me to talk about the integration with automation for Jira, which will be easier for me as John already explained how it works. So obviously, the first thing will be to enter here on the screen that we've seen before, and we will select the project automation admin. Okay, so the first step, as John mentioned, will be to create a rule. As we saw before, automation includes 3 components: triggers, condition, and action. Okay, so if we check within the trigger parts, we will find some Projectrak triggers. Okay, so that's obviously happening thanks to the integration we've got. So let's find the project triggers. So we've got 3 of them. We've got when project is created, when the project is deleted, or when a project field value is updated. Okay. So for the example I've picked today, I'm not going to select one of those triggers. I just wanted for you to know that they do exist whenever you integrate Projectrak with automation. But this time we're going to select when an issue is created. Okay. So let's select this this trigger. So this one issue created. Sorry. And then we will have several possibilities. So either to, so we click on save. So either we can add a new action. Okay, that's something we're going to do after, or we could add also a new condition. And what's great also with the integration of automation and Projectrak is that you could have also a Projectrak value as a condition. So if you select the project query condition, we could say, for example, that for this specific rule, like when an issue is created, that will only work if the type of project is equal to business. So that will work only for business project. Okay. You could also select status, priority, again, any value apart from the script field, but any value coming from Projectrak. Great, but let's forget about this and let's create like a new action. And this time we're going to say like, okay, I want that whenever an issue is created, I want to update my project. In that case, I will select the same project on the issue, and I will say that the status will be updated and changed to on track if I decide to create an issue on this specific project. Okay, so this is a way to link issue and project values. So let's see how it works. So first of all, we need to name it. So when issue is created, status is on track. And so that would be the name of the rule we're going to create. And then we're going to see if this has been working. So let's enter in a project that is not on track, obviously. So this one should be on pause. And we're going to create a new issue. Again, remember, this is the trigger. And now we're going to see if the action is working. So let's refresh the page and we should have the new status. Cool. So that's good job, John. our integration are working perfectly. So that's an example among so many use cases. Again, as I told you at the beginning, our users have, each one of them have own way of using Jira, of using projects. So we're trying to get a lot of use cases on our documentation, but each customer is different. So please reach us. We'll get really happy to give you and provide you a demo and make sure it fits to your own implementation. So just a quick takeaways before I give the mic to Michael. Obviously, using Projectrak and the feature I've shown you today will help you to spend less time tracking your project. You will receive notification, you will get some gadget, you will also get updated in real time thanks to the script field. You will obviously reduce failure due to the human factor, and finally, you will avoid repetitive tasks. So that's it from me. So I will stop sharing my screen, and thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Flora. So I'm going to be talking about the Bob Swift Atlassian CLI and what it can do for you to automate numerous scenarios in your life. So we'll talk about the CLI. CLI stands for Command Line Interface. So Command Line Interface means that we're not in the web browser, we're not clicking, because sometimes the best way to solve a problem is to keep your hands on the keyboard. And in the case of the Atlassian CLI, that's what you do. We're going to show you how to automate your tasks, integrate tools, and migrate data with these three scenarios. So 3 scenarios: tedious tasks made trivial in Jira, massive data sets in minimal time, and next level Jira and Confluence integration. So let's look at tedious tasks made trivial in Jira. So in this scenario, we want to copy multiple attachments from one issue to another. Now, you can't drag and drop between issues like open 2 browser windows and drag and drop. That's not supported. So what we end up doing, you'll end up right-clicking on every attachment, downloading it, and trying to upload it. As we can see here, we've got a number of attachments, 10 in this case, on an issue. I want them to be on this issue, but there's no straightforward way in the UI. And being the lazy admin that I am, I don't want to spend 10 minutes clicking and trying to get it done. So I'm going to use the Atlassian command line interface to get the job done. So here I am in a terminal on my computer. Now you can see that I'm demonstrating on a Mac today, but the Atlassian CLI works exactly the same on Mac, Windows, and Linux. So I'm going to invoke the Atlassian CLI by typing the command ACLI. And if you recall, if you look closely, this instance of Jira is Bob Swift 12. So I'm going to say I want to connect to Bob Swift 12. Hit return, and now I'm inside the command line interface. And you see it has looked at Bob Swift 12, and it's figured out that it's Jira Cloud. So now the Atlassian command line interface is ready to help me to connect those, move those attachments connected to it. I'm going to type -A, which is short for action. And automatically, the CLI presents me a set of actions that I could take. There's over 800 of them. So as you might imagine, it's good to know what you're looking for. Well, what we said before is we want to move attachments from SSP 10 to SSP 11. So attachments, let's start looking for attachments. Okay, there's add attachment, add attachments, copy attachment, or copy attachments. And it says copy attachments from one issue to another issue. That's the one I want. So I hit space, and the Atlassian CLI continues to help me type out the command I need to use to make that happen. So I need to copy it from an issue. And the CLI is looking up the issues that I've most recently looked at. So I don't have to go back and remember what the key is. So go down here, I'm going to select SSP 10, and now it reminds me, oh, you have a required field right here of the issue to which I want to copy the attachments. I'll select it. And once again, it helps me out by showing me the recent issues I've looked at. Now, there are a lot of other options that I could choose to copy attachments, but in this case, this is all I need. So I'm going to hit return. And in just a moment, it'll begin copying attachments. And you see that is going through all the attachments in SSP10 and copying to SSP11. If I come here to SSP11 and refresh the page, you'll see it's gotten through 8 attachments so far. And I go back here and now it's done. It's done all 10 attachments. So I've turned what could be a rather tedious task into something quite simple. I kept my hands on the keyboard and I succinctly described that I wanted to copy attachments from one issue to another. So there's one tedious task that I've made trivial in Jira. So the next scenario is a bit more complex. In this case, I have 50 new projects that I need to create in Jira. I have a file of them. I have a CSV file of them. That's nice. So how am I going to get that done? Well, before I had the CLI, when I was faced with a tedious task, I would turn on some speed metal or some other really motivating music, and I'd spend an hour or perhaps longer just typing and clicking and typing and clicking. But now with the CLI, I can do this in one command and let it do its work while I go refill my coffee. So let's see how that works. So in this case, I'm still in BobSIF 12. And by looking here, I have 2 projects. Now, let's open up that CSV file we talked about. So I've mocked up some data, making use of some Latin in here. So I've got a list of projects, what I want the project key to be, what I want the project name to be, and the description. All here in a list, and we've got 51 projects here. So I've got 2 tasks in front of me here. I need to create a project, but I need to be able to read that CSV file and use it as my source. So one of the great things about the CLI, especially Atlassian CLI version 10, is we've introduced this interface to help you discover how to do things. So let's find out how we make projects with the CLI. I'll type -A to say I want to take an action. And again, I'll type project and it starts showing me the various projects. Project looks right. I'm looking at the description, create a new project. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. That's how I create a project. Now I look at the list of parameters here and it says I have to provide a project key and I have to provide a lead. Okay, so it looks up the users that are available. So this is a test instance, so I think I'll use the test automation user in this case. Although I could have used just myself as the user, the person actually doing the work. And then I have to specify a project. Now, it's not going to give me a value for there because I'm creating a project. So great, I understand how to create a project, but how do I do that for all of those project IDs and names that are in the CSV? Well, let's explore. I'm going to cancel running that automation, and I'm going to go -A again, and I'm going to say, okay, CSV. Oh, there is an action called run from CSV. That's exactly what I need. Okay, let me specify the file. Well, I know I downloaded the file. So let me find where that is. And oh, I know it's mock data. Ah, there it is. So I run it from mock data. So now I know that I can run from a CSV in mock data. So let's now, for every one of those items in that file, I want to perform that common action of creating a project. Well, I figured out how to do that by looking at it above. So I'm going to just finish out writing the command. Now the project, if you look back in this file here, I use the terms project name and description. Well, those are exactly the same terms as are the parameters. So you know what? I can save myself some work. I can just say, read this file, create a project for every row in this file. And since I didn't specify a lead in this file, I'll say, just make me the lead. So I'll hit return. And now it is running through that file and it is creating projects as fast as Jira will let it create projects. So each pause you see is it waiting for Jira to come back and show that it's creating the projects. So I'll refresh my project list here, and you'll see that they're starting to be built. Now, I made a mistake here. I had in the list a project that was already there, so it stopped. If I wanted to do this again, I could just simply say continue, and that would tell the CLI, don't worry when you hit an error, just keep on going. But since I have 5 minutes left in my demo, and it might take a minute or two to go through 50 projects, we're just going to go ahead and satisfy ourselves that, look, we have made projects from that file. Let's refresh, see if it's any more. Okay, we got through 5 projects. That's pretty good. So let's look at our next scenario. And I think I went one too many. There we go. So in this case, after we made all these projects, now the teams want a Confluence team page created for every project. So how are we going to get that done? Well, we could swivel between browser windows on 2 monitors. I could look at my list of projects. I could go over to Confluence and I could copy and paste project names and so forth. Or instead of using 2 monitors to do the work, I could put Cowboy Bebop on Netflix streaming on 1 monitor while I let the CLI do the other work. I like that solution better. So here I am in Confluence, and I have no spaces created yet. So let's go to the command line interface. And remember, we want to create a space. So let's find out, how do we create spaces? So I'm going to start looking for spaces, add space, copy space. Okay, add space. It's not create space. So I thought it might be create space, but I just started typing space, and there it is. It showed me what the space was. So what is required? Well, I've got to supply a space name from there. And is there anything else that I have to do? Let's see. Well, there's no other required fields, but I could use a description if I wanted to. I could do more details. But let's keep it real simple here. So now I know how to add a space. Now before, we used that CSV file to create the spaces, and we could do that again. But let's say we have projects that already exist and we want to create spaces for them. Well, we can do that as well. So if I look up project actions, lots of actions for projects. If I keep going for a while, just like we had run from CSV, we have run from project list. So this lets me do a bunch of actions for one project list. So just like with run from CSV, I'm going to say common -a, and I'm going to say add space because we learned that that is how we do it. And then looking up at our example before, we need to specify the space name. Now in this case, I want the space name to be the same as the project name. So one thing I know that when I'm processing a project list, every project is provided to me to take action on in that common action. So I'm going to say add project and let it go. So now you see it's going through the set of spaces that I created earlier with the CSV, and it's creating those spaces in Confluence. If I come back to here and refresh, you'll see that those spaces are being created. It's still working on it. It's going as fast as Confluence will let it go. I'll refresh one more time. And there we go. There's all our spaces created. So let's recap. We automated tasks. We created a bunch of projects with external data, and we integrated Jira and Confluence in a way to keep us from having to do a lot of tedious work all at once. Thanks, everybody. That's my time. Over to you, Flora.
Yeah, I will pass the mic to my friend Cody, who doesn't want to sing, but still.
We got to keep everybody here. So yeah, I guess I'm going to round this out with the Q&A and stuff. And first, I think I can speak on behalf of everybody. Thank you to the speakers. That was incredible. You guys were dropping gold nuggets left and right. And it was super information packed. So thank you. I was super impressed at how international this webinar was. It seems like between the attendees and the speakers, we covered every time zone that was possible. And it was just awesome kind of hearing everybody's accents, of course, as well. And so now you get to hear my thick French accent. But let's get into the Q&A because I've got a lot of questions to get through. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to go round robin. I'm going to try to get to each speaker and we'll go that way. And of course, if you have any other questions or you need anything else kind of elaborated on, please feel free to drop it in the Q&A and of course, we'll try to get to it and stuff. So with that being said, John, the first one is for you, my man. Is it possible to add a schedule to run an existing automation on a specific cadence? Example, every day at 6 a.m.
Yes. And I'm really glad you asked that question because I should have showed it. If I want actually just very, very briefly, I'll share my screen so I can show you because it's such a handy little thing. So in the triggers, you can go in, there's a scheduled rule like this. And again, simple as you like. So let's just say every Thursday at 6 a.m. was it? And that's it. And you can check the time zone. You can change the days that you want it on. And you can do anything you want there. So for example, schedule Slack message to pop up with everything that's, I don't know, all the issues in the backlog, whatever it might be. So that's it. That's all you need to do. Choose a schedule trigger.
Awesome. Cool. So Flora, the next one will go for with you. Is it possible to automate sync of subtask fixed version with parent fixed version and at the same time have possibility to sometimes have a different fixed version in the subtask? I worry that the script will overwrite the manually set version.
All for you, my friend Fede.
Thank you very much for that. I think that that's not a question for Projectrak, but I think that Flora was showing the scripts, an example with the scripts, but I think that was aimed a little bit for some kind of Atlassian use case, I guess. Right? Because I don't know, subtasks are, as Flora said before, tasks are some kind of a part of the issues. And Projectrak is all about projects. We work on project level, you know, and those scripts will only work on projects, you know, and they'll arrange stuff around the projects. But I hope that someone here can answer that question. I believe that someone will be able to do so. If not, we'll get that information and we'll send it to you right away. Don't worry about that.
Perfect. John, do you want to elaborate any further on that, or we can take that question and follow up?
No, I think that's pretty comprehensively answered. I don't think I can answer that.
Cool. So we can follow up on that too as well. So, Mr. Michael Cole, this one's for you, my friend. I see that you switched back and forth between your desktop and browser. How did you get what is on your desktop?
What I did was I installed the Atlassian CLI. So let me share my screen for just a moment here. So what you see here on the Atlassian Marketplace is the listing for the Atlassian CLI. There are actually two parts to the Atlassian CLI. There's the part that runs on your desktop that I showed you directly today, but there's also the part that runs in Confluence and Jira and Bitbucket and so forth. So if I go over here in the Marketplace to the Jira command line interface, that is the part that you install in Jira, and then that allows the part on your desktop that I showed to talk to Jira. So in the cases where I demoed today, I talked to a Jira instance that had the Jira command line interface installed, and I had the ACLI talk to a Confluence instance that had the interface installed. So two parts install it on Jira or Confluence or Bitbucket, as the case may be. Second part, install it on the desktop where you actually want to interact with the CLI.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So John, now we're back up to you. You're back up to bat. I think you kind of hinted at this a little bit, but is there a sandbox to test automation rules?
Yes, so twofold. In the automation template library, there's the playground, so you can play around with the UI, get to know how it works, but you can actually run those rules to see how that would work in the real world. But what you can do, there is a sandbox, but it's only available in the premium editions of Jira. So if you have Jira Software Premium or Jira Service Desk Premium, you can go in there, use the sandbox to test the rules. So yeah, that's the short answer for that one.
Perfect, perfect. Flora, so now back to you. This is a question about Projectrak. Which Projectrak data center functionalities are available in the cloud version? Always a good question.
Well, I guess I'm going to answer that. Thank you, Flora. Don't worry about that. There's difference, of course. There's differences between Projectrak on-premises, like server and data center, and Projectrak cloud. For example, in Projectrak data center, you will be able to operate in bulk throughout projects, on projects that you won't be able to do in Projectrak cloud for now. And then there's different kinds of things. We are working on evening out the experience because, of course, we have been working really hard on Projectrak data center and server for many years, and we have many different features in there. But in Projectrak cloud, we're working also really hard in evening out that experience and those features. But we will love to have more integrations as we have right now. We're working really hard on trying to get different integrations like automation, Projectrak and automation integration in cloud, but we're working on that. We still have to check some stuff out where we still have to check many other integrations, but right now you will be able to see a lot of, reporting integrations in Projectrak cloud as ECBI, as other different apps that will help you report in Projectrak cloud, but we're working really hard on that. So there's going to be many differences. You are also welcome to enter our documentation, because we have a really good example on what you can see and what you can do in Projectrak data center and server and cloud. So there you go. Hope I answered your question.
Awesome. I know we're getting short on time, but I think we're all still here ready to party if you guys are, so we can get all the questions answered. Michael, this goes to you. So you showed adding projects. What other types of things could I do besides just adding projects? Could I remove things as well?
Yes, you can. And one of the best way to discover that is to use that same interface that I used earlier today to discover things. So, for example, if I want to learn what I can do with a Jira issue, if I type -A to say I want to do an action, and then I just start typing issue, you'll start seeing all the things you can do with an issue. So I can create an issue like I created a project. I can delete an issue, clone an issue. As I said, over 800 actions available. So I'll stop listing them all now, but this is the way to explore it, is to search through here and learn about what's available.
Awesome. Cool stuff. So John, there's a couple of questions came through here at the end, and one of those was, is it possible at assessing priority or order of execution on many of the automations that are triggered by another automation?
So no, it's not. They do generally have a format of coming out, but we can't control that. There are loop protections in place. And I sort of saw another question there, so I can link these two together. That you can have full visibility over all of the automations that are happening across each product, and in fact across the whole company in your global audit log. So you can see exactly what automation rules are firing, how many of them are firing. And as I mentioned, we have those loop protections in place as well to make sure that they don't clash and just end up in this loop of hell, as we call it.
Awesome. So April, I hope that answered your question as well. But let me know if it didn't. So Flora/Fede, does Projectrak have any security settings?
Well, that's a really good question. We really care about securities in any kind of instance. And back in the day when Projectrak was getting built, we decided to create a Projectrak administrator. That's a new permission, that you can give to every project administrator in order to be able to administrate the projects, create fields, assign layouts, and change values in different projects. So you can assign that project administration level to a group, to a single user, or to anyone that is an actual project administrator. So we take a really good care on that security level. So that's what we did, and that's what you're going to find in Projectrak. I hope I answered. Cool.
Yep. And April, I've seen what you're saying, and I promise you I'll get to that. But for this one, Michael Cool, a question came in: what admin task can actually be done via the Atlassian CLI?
The answer is at least a few hundred, but to get a little more specific about that, just like I said before, you want to think about the object you want to act on as an admin and then look it up. So let's think about a Jira project admin's role. They're responsible for maintaining components in a project, for example. So if I go into CLI and, whoops, that didn't work. There we go. And I want to work with components. That's a project admin task. And you see here, I've got actually a number of things I can do with components. So the answer is a lot. And the way to find out what they are is to think of what you want to act on and search for it in the CLI. So for example, I looked for role. We can work with project roles. I look for permissions. We can work with permissions. There's just a ton to discover and a ton to do. The new ACLI 10.0 is made to make it really straightforward to discover everything that's possible. If you don't see exactly how you want to do what you want to do as an admin, get on the Atlassian community and ask a question. Our support team very actively monitors, and we will help you out to point you in the right direction.
That's what I like to hear. So maybe we do one more lap around the track here. John, I think you're answering April's concerns in the chat. So here's one for you that I pulled that's not April's. Are you ever concerned about maintaining Jira instances that have significant automations implemented across many projects?
Yeah, I kind of answered that one a little bit earlier on. So not so much me as the software architect who put it together is the one kept him awake in the early days of automation. And that's why they put all of these loop protections in place. So there's a few different things you do. In the global audit log, you can go in, you can get complete visibility over what's happening. You can also do things like create automation rules that show you when you're about to breach whatever it might be, any SLAs. So you can sort of add manual protections in place. But we've really never had it in, like, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 years of working with automation. There was 1 or 2 occasions, and that's why we added extra protections in place. So it's about visibility and what we put in behind the scenes as well.
Awesome. Cool. So last question for the Fede Flora team. Where can I learn more about the integration of automation and Projectrak?
Well, again, you're really welcome. Everyone is welcome to go on and read our documentation. We have different examples. We have everything that you can actually do with automation and Projectrak. And then in our blog, there's many posts about this integration. You know, that our head of product, Leo, has written down he has a lot of experience with automation and Jira, you know, and with Projectrak. So you will be able, if you go to our Deiser blog post, well, you'll see those posts where they explain a lot of stuff, and it's really interesting. Okay.
Perfect. Cool. And Leo's awesome. I love Leo.
He's somewhere around there.
Oh yeah, he's so cool. So then the last question to wrap us up, Mr. Cool, it's all you to bring us home. Does the Atlassian CLI work with any other Atlassian apps?
Yes, it does. And I kind of alluded to that a moment ago. It works with Jira, Confluence, and Bitbucket, both cloud and self-hosted. It works with Bamboo. And bonus, it works with Slack as well. So I'd recommend you do a couple things. One, get on the Atlassian Marketplace and look up CLI and then the name of the Atlassian product you want to automate and look up there, or go to the Atlassian CLI documentation on bobswift.atlassian.net and look at all the pages we have about the CLI. There's a lot of things it automates. I have not listed all of the apps it automates yet, but go explore.
That's a lot of automations. So I think that's all we got. I know we went a little bit over time. So Flora, I guess I'll just hand it back to you to close us out.
Yeah, so thank you very much to all of you for attending. For those who woke up really early, John, I'm so sorry about that. and for us now it's time to sleep. So no, it was really cool to get this webinar with you guys. I think we had a lot of information. Obviously, it makes more sense to get like a more face-to-face demo for some of us. So if you want to reach directly the support for automation directly to Appfire or to us, please feel free to do it. So thank you guys. Good day, good night, wherever you are. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.